Have you ever heard of arajiru? If you're really into Japanese cuisine, you have most likely tried it. It's a very light fish broth often mixed with miso and made from parts of the fish that might be considered waste, such as the head. It's the perfect complement to raw fish dishes like sushi. But what happens when raw fish becomes the perfect complement to a fish broth? Enter this week's bowl of Shio Ramen by Shinasoba Tanaka.
Hello, こんにちは。品そば田中の田中裕樹です。よろしくお願いします。
This entire dish draws an incredible amount of inspiration from Chiba, a favorite location of chef Tanaka-san. The idea behind this meal was to showcase the many flavors of the sea by the Boso Peninsula of Japan, where Chiba is located. Not only did I try his Boso fish ramen, I also tried some slices of sashimi and something called Namero. I'll come back to that later, so stay tuned. Jumping right into the broth, I found this fish base very interesting. Similar to the dish arajiru mentioned earlier, this fish broth was made with fish heads from 7 types of fish. Now, Tanaka-san thinks fish head soup alone does not pack enough flavor in it to justify itself as a ramen broth, so he first sautés the fish in butter to massively impact the flavor before preparing it into the soup. The results meant it was not to the level of a typical fish-based broth such as Niboshi-style ramen, which to some can be overwhelming in its fishy flavors. This was more akin to a chicken-style broth. Subtle and light flavors that combined together wonderfully, creating an elegantly crafted flavor that I loved sipping. These noodles were also quite a nice combination. Thin, straight noodles with a subtle bite to them, and a lovely smooth slurp. The noodles were even more elevated on the second round. This week I had Aedama, which added the same noodles but offered a vastly different experience. Firstly, they were cooked rather quickly to give a much fuller noodle that had tons of bite. I loved this evolution of texture that it brought. Additionally, more flavor was brought to the bowl, deeper seafood flavors and hints of sweetness. This was thanks to the Ise Lobster Oil which coated the new batch of noodles. I genuinely wolfed this Aedama down. It was incredibly good. You have probably already noticed that this bowl features a leaf in it. This is Shiso. This herb can be found across Japanese cuisine and has almost a minty essence to it. It's definitely not for everyone, but I personally quite like the taste. As I ate the ramen, the herby flavors of this shiso bled into the broth progressively, which meant that the noodles themselves took on extra flavor when they were resting by that shiso. After eating about half the noodles, I committed and I ate the shiso in the same manner I would seaweed, taking the full leaf with a heavy helping of noodles. This was a nice explosion of flavor for that one mouthful, but it would be completely understandable if you didn't want to do this to keep the flavors more subtle. Because of this shiso, the chashu also captured some interesting flavors. This chashu was nice and tender and held some great umami, but its addition almost felt kind of like a courtesy. Great taste, but rather small and not one of the most memorable flavors within the dish, but I was very happy to have it included. Finally, I can talk about the side dish of sashimi and the alluded to Namero. Something you may not know about me is that I adore raw fish. I eat sushi or sashimi at least once a week, especially with that green gold, freshly grated wasabi. So I felt right at home with these 2 types of sashimi that was served. However, what I did not expect was how much I would love the Namero, and it was the first time that I've tried this. This is a dish loved in its place of origin, Chiba. This is effectively minced fish with a variety of aromatics such as the aforementioned shiso. I would definitely recommend trying this if you're okay with eating raw fish. It was very much similar to a steak tartare and every bit as delicious.
日本の、ラーメンだったりそばの文化で、すするという文化があります。で、外国人の方だとあんまりすするっていう、音でしたり、擬音の部分でちょっとね鼻水をすすってる音に似てるから。パスタとかもそうですけど、パスタはさすがに日本人もすすらないですけど、そばだったり、ラーメンをすするっていう文化があるんで、もし粋なすすり方を、覚えたいのであれば僕にぜひ聞いてください。ぜひ教えます。で、僕店舗の方は、東池袋、こちらが本店で、池袋にまず1店舗、あとは、千葉の海沿い、いすみ市に、もう1店舗いすみ店ですね あとは東中野、総武線の方の東中野の駅前に、混ぜそばの専門店やってます。その3店舗やってますんで、ぜひ日本に来た時はご立ち寄りください。
Overall, this was a lovely and clean, easy to eat bowl of Shio Ramen, elevated immensely by the addition of some sashimi on the side, which was a match made in heaven for me personally, and I couldn't be happier with the lobster oil Aedama. This was a beautifully filling yet light meal that perfectly represented the fish industry of Chiba without making the trek, although Ramen Walker Kitchen is actually quite far from my home. Let us know what you think of these videos in the comments below and subscribe to always stay up to date. Thank you very much for watching and I will see you next time.